Voice will be over that while you're looking at the board up there, looking at some of the images. As long as you got the image, you can hit the red button and let us talk. Here we go. Y'all know this gentleman up here, that is Adolf Hitler. Here is a very famous quote from him. So my question to you is, based off this quote, to conquer a nation, first disarm its citizens. The key word, yes sir?
The lights make it kind of hard to see.
The first key word here being disarm. What do we mean by disarm? Is that better?
No.
Turn it all off? Is that better?
That's better, yeah.
All right. So what do we mean by disarm? Go ahead, Cole.
Take their guns away.
Take their guns away. All right, that's the start. Go ahead, Gozy.
Or like disenfranchising.
What do you mean by disenfranchise?
Take away the right to have things say and
All right, to take away their rights. So we have Cole's interpretation looking at disarm as Second Amendment, at least as far as our country. You said disenfranchise, take away their rights as people. Jen, what were you going to say?
Pretty much the same thing, like take away like their freedom of speech and stuff like that.
All right, freedom of speech. Lindsay?
I was just gonna say, like, paralyze them from even having a fight, like even fighting back.
All right, so to paralyze them from having an ability to even fight back. That's a good one. Yes, ma'am?
Maybe like disarm their knowledge that they have known since like the beginning and try to reform them.
Disarm the knowledge that they've had for a while and reform them into what the new knowledge is that Hitler would like his people to know. All of your answers are definitely worth understanding, because that's what he means by disarm. Hitler actually took over a couple of countries without ever firing a shot. That's impressive. And you're right. You can take disarm, as Cole said, from taking away their physical weapons, which is one thing he did in Germany, especially to the Jews. He took away their weapons. And then to all the people he didn't like, he obviously created an environment to where their belief system was completely changed. So he disarmed them physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, etc. And that made it easy for his government to conquer their citizens. Which is also why in a future video that you're going to watch called The Wave, which is about 40 minutes, there's a young girl in this movie who asks her history teacher, why did no one in Germany do anything about this? Well, the experiment that the teacher does will answer that question. That movie is based on a real-life experience that happened in 1967. If you have an older sibling that was here 5 years ago, then they saw the teacher, Ron Jones, was brought here and he spoke about this experiment that he did in 1967 called The Wave, and we'll get to that later. Let's look. This is the first of the three major party slogans. What slogan is this?
War is peace.
War is peace. War is peace, war is peace. Once again, this is an example of doublethink, the ability to hold a contradictory idea and have it make sense. That's doublethink. Once again, the ability to hold contradictory ideas and have them make sense. So now the obvious question. How is war and peace held as an idea to make sense? Who's got an idea? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Chan.
War leads to peace.
How so?
After fighting the war and getting rid of your enemies, there's no one left to fight.
All right, that's one interpretation. Once you defeat your enemies, there is no one to fight. So, yes, you, the victor, have peace. Go ahead, Gozi.
Now, given the image, war can like be related to fire, and fire used to like sterilization and cleansing. So, like when you cleanse something of like of like their impurities and all that, it will like lead to like a sense of peace and or something like that.
All right, so you're taking the image with the fire as representing the cleansing impurities of war. That'll work. Any other ideas on how war is peace? When's your economy the best?
During war,
Why?
You're selling.
you're producing the machinery necessary for war.
Yeah, you're producing. All the factories are open. They're all running. They're all producing. Everybody who's physically capable can have a job. Even jobs they may not be expecting. Like during World War II, when the majority of the men were overseas and there wasn't baseball at home, the women played baseball. You've seen the movie A League of Their Own. It's based on reality. I've met some of the women who actually were the baseball players. Now, some of them have passed on because that was World War II. They're a little old at this point. But your economy is humming. Are you more or less likely to overthrow or revolt against your government during a time of war?
Yes.
You're definitely less likely to try and overthrow your leaders when you're in a time of war. So peace in this case is not just for the citizens. Peace is also for those that are in power. So in 1984, you have three major countries. Oceania, where the story is taking place, East Asia, and Eurasia. Who's Oceania fighting? Again? They're fighting both of them. And all three of the countries announced during different parts of the book that they're going to rotate who they're fighting. It's an endless war. On purpose. Once again, if it looks like we're fighting and our government is trying to protect us, hence the name Big Brother, then we're not going to try and overthrow them and cause disruption. It's clever, but it works. The next one. Which slogan is this?
Slavery is freedom.
Freedom is slavery. There you go. There are three major party slogans. You'll see this on a quiz coming up soon. You'll see this on tests. You'll have the ability to use this information in an essay at some point. So make sure you're getting this. Yes, freedom is slavery. Some of you had a taste of this on the alchemist test. Sounds weird, but you did. And here's why. Because for so long here at Bishop Lynch, you have been ingrained to write in the Dawa composition style that Story and I created. Oh, it's got to have an introduction. It's got to have 3 body paragraphs. It's got to have a conclusion. We have to introduce the quote. We have to have the quote. We have to have analysis. And then all of a sudden, we get to the alchemist essay test, and you're like, what do you mean you're giving us freedom to write the essays how we want? I can't do that. I need structure. Yeah, tell me I'm wrong. Some of y'all, I saw twitches. You didn't know what to do. It's okay. How else is freedom slavery, though? In this book, how is freedom slavery? Someone's got an answer?
The freedom of like watching television is kind of gone because all the seeing is lies on the television.
Alright, that's an idea. The freedom of actually watching television like we understand it, the ability to switch channels, etc. Yeah, that's gone. They have a freedom to have the TV, but they're only watching state-run television, like you would if you were in North Korea or China. If you are a slave, if you are a prisoner, and it's been 10, 20, 30, 40 years that you were held in captivity, what's more than likely, Spence, the scariest day?
When you get out.
The day you are free. Why is that?
Because everything's changed and everything's new to you.
Everything has changed. You are no longer told when to do something, how to do it, where to do it, who to do it with, why to do it. Now you get to make all the decisions yourself. Having not had that ability before, that's pretty scary. So yeah, freedom in this case can be slavery. These people in this society in 1984 have so many rules that they are just so accustomed to living under that for them it's normal. They have that sense of freedom, even though we here in the United States have far much more freedom. And if you ever read a law book, we have billions of laws on our books, and yet we're still one of the more free countries in the world. Last one of the major slogans, also a biblical proverb, but I like the picture. Yeah, it's pretty funny, not from Kermit's point of view, obviously. What's the final slogan?
Somebody's control.
Ignorance is strength. Pretty simple one to figure out. It's like ignorance is bliss. Let's face it. If you don't know something is wrong, how can you possibly worry about it? If the government doesn't tell you that there's a law against something, how do you possibly know whether you're breaking it? Sometimes it is better simply to be ignorant. Alright, now I got a question for you on this one. Most of y'all know I hate math. Don't like it. Realize you'll probably never use math in your life. I'm glad that's on video. We'll show the math department. My video, my rules. 2 plus 2 equals 5. Farmer Joe, I know you're pretty good in math. Tell me how 2 plus 2 does equal 5. Tell me how it does.
People say so.
Somebody's telling them that it does, so they believe it.
Someone's telling them that it is, so they believe it. You're right. And you may have gotten a little help from the other side of the room, but that's fine. 2 plus 2 equals 5 because that's what they want you to believe. Let's face it, all truth is subjective anyway. In fact, Cole, right here on the board is a letter. You see it, Cole? Mm-hmm. What letter is that?
A.
Cole says that's the letter A. My question to Cole now is prove it. It's not a philosophical question. Prove that is the letter A.
We've learned that it's the letter A for like our whole lives, so.
Because collectively we have agreed upon the fact that that is the letter A and serves a certain purpose in our vocabulary. You're correct. It is a subjective truth. We could have had that sound like the letter B if we wanted to, but we didn't. So 2 plus 2 does not equal 4. That's a freedom, Winston says, but in this society, it's what they want you to believe, that 2 plus 2 equals 5. All right, let's talk about this poster. Big brother is watching you. How many of you, show of hands, have an older brother? Ooh, that's a whole bunch of you. All right, Huntress, we're going to start with you, then go to Mr. Taylor. So, Mr. Huntress, tell me one thing an older brother is supposed to do for you. Not what he does. I have an older brother, too. What's he supposed to do?
Look out for you.
Look out for you. Jack?
Look out for you and like kind of be almost like a second parent.
Almost be like another parent for you to guide you, etc., etc. What else is an older brother or perhaps a sister supposed to do? Yes, sir.
Guide you.
Guide you. Protect you. All the things you're thinking of. So this gentleman right here, who is a cross between two dictators, one of them Hitler, and one of them, Stalin. Here's a Life magazine with a picture of Stalin on it. Make sure you get that. Looks good right there. That's Real Life magazine.
Zoom in on that.
There's a Real Life magazine with Stalin on the cover. Stalin is not his real name, nor is Stalin even Russian. He was born in Georgia. And don't ask me, was he born in Atlanta? Georgia, the country near the old Soviet Union. Stalin actually translates to Man of Steel. Okay, so I'm not saying he's Superman, but he did kill more of his own people than Hitler did. Some people put the figure of Stalin at about 40 to 50 million dead. Most of those were his own people. That's a lot of people. Now, the description of this man in the early stages of the book: dark hair, mustache, dark eyes, rugged face. Yes, some of you are looking at me, thinking, well, they modeled it after you. I am Big Brother. That is me, Big Brother. It's scary how that works. Your thoughts are correct. If you know anything about subliminal advertising, your thoughts are correct. But notice, these posters are all over Oceania. And yet, we're supposed to be comforted because Big Brother is literally watching over us. So that's actually a sign of reassurance. We feel better. The video cameras are on. Let's face it, the video cameras are on. And everything's right with the world. There you go. We'll turn that one on. Cole, just for you, we'll put this one on too.
They don't actually work.
Work.
Brittany, we went over this last year.
There you go. Y'all behave now. The cameras are on. That one's not working. Cogswell's got to come up here and fix that one. But they're motion censored. They move when you walk in front of them.
On the camera. The camera.
That's Gozy waving. Y'all wave back. Well, in the office, y'all wave back. So anyway, this poster, once again, is all over the place. And it says, Big Brother is watching you. Creepy, scary, sort of like the cameras in here that are now turned on. Alright, Big Brother. There's even a TV show called Big Brother. Where do you think it got its name? From this book. They stick 20 people in a house, shove on a bunch of surveillance cameras, and see what happens. Now, it's scripted. I understand all reality TV is scripted. Nonetheless, 1984 was not supposed to be an instruction manual. Pretty popular meme out there. Alright. This picture is about 15 years old. So the surveillance camera technology has gotten a whole lot better. This was in New York City, and as it says, 15 years ago, one of those cameras could read a cigarette pack from 1,000 feet away.
Right.
Now, the technology doesn't read cigarette packs. What's it read? Your face. You're right. And guess what? We are giving the facial recognition software companies all the pictures they need through social media. You've already agreed to it. As soon as you sign on to social media and you click, I agree with the terms of your service, boom. The NSA now has all your pictures. As mentioned before, last week, week before, 35% of all the world's photographs on a daily basis end up on Facebook. So we feed all the facial recognition software. And I think it's London that is actually more prominent than New York as far as the amount of times you're on camera during an average walking day as a tourist. You'd be on there about 500-600 times a day.
600. What?
Yes.
Well, there are cameras everywhere. Go to an ATM. There's cameras. Walk down the street, and go into a store, sit in a restaurant, there's cameras everywhere. Heck, your phone. People are filming you constantly through the phone. It's crazy. Alright, make sure you get this stuff down. So I'll hold on a minute. There's not a lot of words there. That first one has a link. We'll play that link in a minute. He'll film what's going to be on the video. These right here are characteristics of a dystopian society. With the understanding that if you have a dystopia, somebody else has a utopia. So if there's a dystopia for the people inside Oceania, for the inner party, O'Brien, etc., they're living a utopian life. So the first thing, we have propaganda. Anyone got an idea what propaganda is?
Yeah, let's go.
Go ahead, sir.
It's like, it's information that they try to convey. It could be, it's most times false, just to persuade someone to believing this a certain way,
There you go. Propaganda is synonymous to our it's a form of advertising. And in this case, using political ideology, like we looked at with political memes, it's usually feeding some sort of false information, as you said, in an effort to persuade you towards its political agenda. If you go back and look at World War II or Google World War II propaganda, you'll see that America, Germany, Russia, Japan created amazing pieces of magazine propaganda and posters. We have restricted independent thought. Okay, makes sense. The less you can think independently, the easier you are to control. You have a worshipped figurehead, whether it's Big Brother, Kim Jong-un, Putin, whoever it may be. The perception of constant surveillance as two cameras circle the room in here. Yes, the perception of constant surveillance. And I told you about the restaurant in England, right, with the wallpaper?
No.
I did?
Nope.
A restaurant in England 11 years ago did an experiment, a social experiment, dealing with just number 4. What they did was they had 3 rooms, 3 separate dining rooms. One dining room, they put flowered wallpaper. Beautiful, lovely. Another room, they just had flat white paint. And in the third room, they had wallpaper with the human eye. The human eye all over the wallpaper. Creepy? Yes. Don't know why you'd want to eat in that room, but the people in that room behaved better than the other 2. Why? They thought they were being watched. It was just wallpaper. There were no hidden cameras in the wallpaper. Now, each room had surveillance cameras to check behavior, but the one with the wallpaper behaved better, thought they were being watched. Fear of the outside world. Dystopias are by definition dehumanizing. But number 7, I have a question for. Why would a dystopian society want to prohibit people from enjoying the natural world, like going hiking or hanging out at the lake?
They want to control everything that the people do.
They want to control everything, you're right. And if you're hanging at the lake, well, then number 2 becomes a problem. If you're just hiking and enjoying yourself, then you have the freedom now for independent thought, and you're also not going to be productive as far as the economy is concerned. You're not working in a factory or anything like that. You can see that even in movies like The Hunger Games. You have the uniform expectation. Speaking of a uniform, what is the uniform in this society? No, what's the actual clothing? What's the uniform? It's like a jumpsuit. Yeah, it's overalls. Blue overalls. And then last but not least, you have the illusion of utopia. So let us watch this link. And hopefully this won't take too long to pop up.
Hey,
it's
Cole.
really fascinating. It's about 3 months old.
Hey, Cole. Rappaport. Cole.
I wouldn't do that. It's like, it says it's supposed to have
This is not a video game. This is not a screensaver.
Alright, we gotta wait till
This
the
is the
end.
destruction of a cancer cell by the body's own immune system.
Sorry for
Thanks
those
to
of you
medicine
that
didn't
are
exist until
waiting to
now.
watch this.
And today,
Technical
save your life.
difficulties. Too many ads. Yeah, there we go.
7 billion people inhabit planet Earth. Of those alive today, only a small number will leave a lasting impact. And only the very few will make decisions or take actions that renew their homeland and change the course of history. History may appear to repeat itself for generations. Cycles that never seem to end. There have been times of relative peace and times of great tension. While this cycle repeats, the light of prosperity and innovation has burned bright for most of the world. History is always evolving, and there comes a time when only a few are called upon to make a difference. But the question is, what difference will the few make? The past doesn't have to be the future. Out of the darkness can come the light, and the light of hope can burn bright. What if a people that share a common and rich heritage can find a common future? Their story is well known, but what will be their sequel? Destiny Pictures presents a story of opportunity, a new story, a new beginning, one of peace, 2 men, 2 leaders, 1 destiny. A story about a special moment in time when a man is presented with 1 chance that may never be repeated. What will he choose? To show vision and leadership? Or not? There can only be 2 results. One of moving back. Or one of moving forward. A new world can begin today. One of friendship, respect, and goodwill. Be part of that world, where the doors of opportunity are ready to be opened. Investment from around the world, where you can have medical breakthroughs, an abundance of resources, innovative technology, and new discoveries. What if? Can history be changed? Will the world embrace this change? And when could this moment in history begin? It comes down to a choice. On this day, in this time, at this moment, the world will be watching, listening, anticipating, hoping. Will this leader choose to advance his country and be part of a new world? Be the hero of his people? Will he shake the hand of peace and enjoy prosperity like he has never seen? A great life or more isolation? Which path will be chosen? Featuring President Donald Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un in a meeting to remake history, to shine in the sun. One moment, one choice. What if? The future remains to be written.
What's behind our #1 ranking in heart care for 24 years?
Any idea where that came from? Yeah, that was our piece of propaganda prior to Trump and Kim Jong-un meeting. And you saw all those people sitting there. That was the press corps with all their cameras and everything, and they had no idea that this video was about to be shown. And this was a major piece of propaganda, of which, unfortunately for both sides, still nothing has really happened. No documentation was ever signed or whatever, but it's an impressive piece of propaganda. And that's what it is, trying to persuade the world that these two men, brought to you by Destiny Films, that was a little over the top, wasn't it? The whole thing was over the top? Yeah, it was a little much. But they had to have the basketball guy in there because Kim Jong-un loves basketball. Meets with Dennis Rodman all the time.
What's that movie?
Yeah, the one that, who was it?
Franco. Or James Franco.
James Franco.
The interview, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was, I think there was a hit even out on the makers of that movie. They did not want that out in North Korea.
Yeah.
They were upset big time about that movie. Did it ever come out?
Yeah.
All right, I've not seen it.
I don't think so. Just
I didn't see it.
It came out in like small obscure pictures at like the big
I'm pretty sure Canada publicized it.
All right, I'll go to Netflix someday and try to watch it. All right, let us move on here. All right, make sure you get this. We just saw a piece of propaganda. These are the 5 rules for propaganda. And Gozi was talking about this earlier. Propaganda being the idea of trying to persuade someone towards your point of view. Usually we talk of propaganda in a political ideology, but advertising is propaganda. When Nike came out with 3 words, just do it, they hit the jackpot as far as advertising propaganda. Short, easily memorizable, and the image was very easy to remember. It's a swoosh. That's it. You put that and 8 letters together, 3 syllables, and then you add the signing of Michael Jordan to a shoe contract, and you've got the making of a multi-billion-dollar company. That's because they just signed Colin Kaepernick to a contract because of all his political leadership. Well, it didn't intend to be political, I guess, for lack of a better, I guess it really is political leadership, with the taking of a knee, which is now blown out of proportions. But you're right, Nike did sign him, so Nike has now taken a political stance, and I don't remember what the new slogan is.
Oh, it's like,
but they have stepped into the political arena, no doubt. The first one here, rule of simplification. This is done all the time in rhetoric, which is what this is. It's a 1301 class, which is in rhetoric. You may hear this as an either-or statement, where you're setting it up that there is only 2 choices, good, evil, right, wrong, east, west, whatever it is, you have to make the choice. That there is no other choice to make. And we know that's usually not true. There are usually more than one way to look at any issue. Number 2 in rhetoric is what's known as ad hominem. Oh, trust me, you're about to see a lot of ad hominem real soon. What's today's date? September 4th. When are the midterm elections? In 2 months, November 6th. Oh boy, the political rhetoric is going to heat up. It already has. Go research what Cruz has started saying about Beto. The ad hominem attacks, the personal smears, which have nothing to do with anyone's ability to govern, have already started. Rule of transfusion, where you try to manipulate the consensus values. You may see this also called as guilt by association, where you try to say that because you like a certain character trait, you must like everything about that character trait. So that I have a mustache, well, so did Hitler. That doesn't make me Hitler. I know, shocking. Rule of unanimity. I can't pronounce that one very well, my bad. But there it is, pretty easy to understand. Your view is the only one that's acceptable. And in the rule of orchestration, well, our current government does this one very well, as does the one in Oceania. If you repeat something enough times, whether it's truth or lie, it's going to stick with the people, and by default, it is going to be truth. Pretty simple. Does anyone need a second?
Yes.
Yes? All right. So, for those of you that are getting ready on the videotape, we will simply whistle the theme to Jeopardy. No, that's not. How's the theme to Jeopardy go? Or, for those of you that are still writing and need to take up some time, Gozy will dance. Gozy, you danced all last year. You're an amazing dancer. While we have a moment, do you want to entertain the video audience with a little dancing?
Gozy.
Gozy.
We have music coming for you. Do you need to, you feel the urge?
I got like an hour of sleep lessons.
Alright, he's not willing to do it. Alright, so for those of you that are finishing, does anyone still need a moment? Alright, we're good to go. Oh. Alright, let's start talking about 1984, even a little bit more specific. How old's Winston?
39.
39, thank you. What's his job? Is it actually censoring?
No.
Think about what censoring is. Is it actually censoring?
No.
Because censoring, what is to censor?
To limit.
To limit?
Block, limit.
To block, so certain people can't see it? So does he actually censor?
No.
What does he do? He changes the history.
He doesn't censor.
Exactly. He revises the history. It might be considered a form of censorship in that what is the truth, he is now changing. But once again, truth is subjective. And if Big Brother wants you to believe that what happened in the past is wrong, doesn't exist, we're going to change it, well then so be it. That's all you got to remember, is the new information. Do we do this? Not to this degree. We practice a lot more exclusionary history. For example, you don't find a lot of stuff in your American history books about the Trail of Tears, where we marched Native Americans several thousand miles from Georgia into Oklahoma, northern Texas, and many of them dying along the way. Not obviously something that would be positive public relations in a history book. We also don't talk much about the American eugenics movement, our campaign to create a master race. This is the book. It's called War Against the Weak. It is about an 800-page book, millions of documents done for evidentiary research around the world. Edwin Black is a journalist. This might be the scariest book I've ever read. Hitler did not start the concept of a master race. It was our journalists on Long Island in the late 1890s, early 1900s who did. And I quote from the book, It started in 1904 when a small group of U.S. scientists launched an ambitious new race-based movement that was championed by our nation's social, political, and academic elite. Funded by America's leading corporate philanthropies such as the Carnegie Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, entrenched in classrooms across America, eugenicists sought to eliminate social undesirables. Their methods: forced sterilization, of which we sterilized 60,000 people in this country against their consent, human breeding programs, marriage prohibition, and even euthanasia. Eugenics was sanctioned by the Supreme Court, 27 U.S. states, and here are the victims of these laws. So you can think to yourself, yeah, I might be one of these victims. Blacks, Jews, Mexicans, Native Americans, epileptics, alcoholics, petty criminals, the mentally ill, and anyone else who did not resemble the blonde and blue-eyed Nordic ideal the eugenics movement glorified. This was the late 1890s through early 1900s, long before Hitler got the idea. It was our scientist in New York on Long Island who coined the term the final solution, not Hitler. So, why don't we hear about this in the history book? Why don't we hear about experiments done on blacks in Tuskegee, Alabama with syphilis? Why don't we hear about this stuff in the history books? Huh? Yeah. A history book, in essence, is propaganda. There's a lot of bad stuff that all countries do. They're not proud of. I don't think we were proud of some of the stuff and how, all of this has been taken. So a history book, you try to glorify as much that's good. Maybe a mention of something that's bad, but you don't harp on it. Whether Winston is a rebel or martyr or a fool, we'll have to decide later. Who's Julia? Who?
Isn't that the girl he's crushing on or something?
Yeah, that's the girl he's with. A girlfriend, for a lack of a better term, yeah. She is younger than he is. At the end of part 1, Julia gives Winston a note. What does it say? I love you. That's it. 3 words. I love you. She doesn't say it like that. Example of doublethink. Name the organization Julia is a member of.
Isn't she a part of the
Ministry of Truth?
Yes, but what specific organization within it?
double thing? Or no, think
The junior what?
It's the woman's thing.
It is. I need the title. Very ironic that she's a member of this. It is the Junior Anti-Sex League. Julia is a member of the Junior Anti-Sex League, and yet, finish the thought. She what?
Wrote him a letter.
She has more sex than anyone mentioned in this book. Sex is her form of rebellion. Mr. Charrington, who is he? Ooh, there's some people who haven't read this book, watched the film yet. Some of y'all need to get caught up.
With glasses. Is he the one who gets arrested by his own children?
He does not get arrested by his own children. It is a good guess. That would be Mr. Parsons. Not William Parsons.
Is he the guy who he works with that has the glasses? That
He does not. That would be Syme, who is the next one on the list. Charrington, who is he? Oh, we stumped y'all, so y'all better get this. Mr. Charrington is the owner of the antique shop where Winston Smith goes to purchase a coral paperweight. It is also above the antique shop where he and Julia go to enjoy themselves. We shall say that. And it is in this room above the antique shop where Julia actually remembers the past. She brings makeup, real coffee, items that you won't find in their world. Now, that's not only who Mr. Charrington is. Who else is Mr. Charrington?
Well, he gets them turned into the government. So he would.
Bingo. Mr. Charrington not only owns the antique shop, he is a leading member of the Thought Police. If you haven't figured it out, for those of you that have read, even for those of you that haven't read, make sure you understand this in hopes at some point you will read. Winston Smith is being pulled through this book in what is really a quite elaborate scheme. Charrington is in on it. O'Brien is in on it. Lots of people in the government are in on this scheme. Charrington sells him antiques. Winston thinks he's in the clear. As it turns out, after Charrington has enough evidence, he's a member of the Thought Police. They come and arrest Winston and Julia. The Thought Police come in described like the SS Gestapo during Nazi Germany with their boots, just stomping things and all sorts of stuff. Huntress, you mentioned this earlier, someone that works with Winston side by side with glasses. It wasn't Charrington, it was actually Syme. Do you know what Syme's job is, though?
He was, I can't remember, but...
Deals with Newspeak.
Oh, did he go through and, like, censor everything?
He wrote the latest edition of the Newspeak Dictionary.
Oh.
I think it was the 8th edition, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong. But Syme, at that point, is then vaporized. It doesn't necessarily mean he's killed. It just means, in this case, he's taken out of service like a witness protection, so no one knows him anymore. His name would be changed, everything would be changed, his location would be changed, because he knows too much. If he wrote the new dictionary, he obviously remembers the past one. So he knows far too much. All right, next one. Goldstein and the Brotherhood. Who is Emmanuel Goldstein? He is the leader of the Brotherhood. Thank you. Notice the last name. Jewish. He is the enemy. He is the leader of the Brotherhood. During what event do they put Emmanuel Goldstein's picture on the telescreen so that people could just scream and scream and scream and let out all their energy?
2 minutes of hate.
During the what?
Like 2 minutes of hate.
The 2 minutes hate. That is correct. That is their way, the government's way of controlling even when you release energy. You do calisthenics in the morning through the telescreen, what they call the physical jerks. And then during the 2 minutes hate, you release energy. You're not going to release energy during sex because sex is frowned upon unless it's only for procreation. Getting more junior spies. Question. Does Goldstein exist?
No.
I've heard no and I've heard yes. Does he exist? Let me rephrase my question, Mr. DiBiase. Does it matter if Goldstein exists in flesh and blood?
No.
No.
No, why?
In this book.
Because
You got it?
so they put him on TV, right?
They put him on
And then-
TV. You can see his picture.
Nobody
Just like
has
you
to-
can see Big Brother's picture.
Nobody has to know if he's real or not because the government shows them.
That is exactly correct. It doesn't matter if he's real flesh and blood. There's a picture of him just like there's a picture of Uncle Sam. Doesn't mean he's real. All they have to do is believe that he is. Truth is subjective. So Goldstein is up there. There's his face. There's someone to yell at. We would do that a few years ago if we put the picture of Osama bin Laden up there. We would unify as a country against our enemy. Same thing they're doing. Couple more here. O'Brien and the book. O'Brien, as mentioned earlier, and a lot of you said this a couple of days ago, and this was said in several classes, O'Brien is probably the closest person we have to Big Brother and the inner leadership that we are presented with in this book. Some people think O'Brien actually is Big Brother. There's no way to prove this, but O'Brien is about as high an inner party member as we have. Also keep in mind, the point of view or the voice of this book is Winston. This doesn't mean that there aren't 50 or 100 other people undergoing the exact same thing as Winston. But we're only getting the book from Winston's perspective. If not, the book would be 10 billion pages and we definitely would not read it. Yes, sir? So O'Brien, who's in on this plot as our highest ranking inner party member, wrote what is known as the book. I'm going to give you the title because it's not an easy title to remember. It is The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism. Yeah, I know, some of y'all just twitched on oligarchical. Spelled pretty much how it sounds, an oligarch. If you've had a history class, hopefully they've mentioned to you what an oligarchical government is. What is an oligarchical government? Yes, anyone?
It's a government ruled by a few wealthy people.
Exactly. Some people even think our government has become oligarchical when you got billionaires, you know, as campaign people, or billionaires as cabinet members, I'm sorry. True or not, an oligarchy in the totalitarian world is where you have a government run by a few incredibly wealthy people. Oligarchical collectivism. So they collectively run the government. There is a line that's not on this screen that you need to know because O'Brien said it in part 1. Winston dreamed that he heard it. And then in part 3 of the book, it becomes reality. Very scary reality for Winston. Here's the line. We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness. We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness. Winston imagines this line being told to him in part 1 of the book. The we he doesn't understand. The place where there is no darkness he doesn't understand. If there is no darkness, that means there's all light. Symbolically, that means that's where the truth is going to come out. In part 3 of the book, it does come true, because where does Winston spend time in part 3? Room 101. And who's running him through that? O'Brien. That's who he's going to meet. A person he thought was his friend. It's not. This is a person pulling him through the book, this elaborate scheme. What's Winston's worst fear in room 101? Rats, thank you. In room 101, you are subject to face your worst fear. For Winston, we know it is rats. He's the only person we know their worst fear. We're going to go about 2-3 more minutes, because several items on this slide we've already covered, like doublethink, the ability to hold a contradictory idea. Thought crime is right there. It's described in the word. It's you thinking of a crime. It's you looking like you're having an independent thought. Well, that's an arrestable offense. So what are the 4 ministries? We have the ministry of truth. This is where Winston works. Responsible for revisionist history. Not necessarily censorship, revisionist history, or exclusionary history. We have the ministry of plenty, in charge of economic rations. Makes sense? Doublethink. We have the ministry of love, in charge of torture. That wouldn't make sense. You ever been in love? Boy, it's torture. Just kidding. You wait till Valentine's Day when you spend all your money. Torture. And last but not least, the ministry of peace, in charge of the war. Yeah, it all makes sense. It's all doublethink. We have 2 more items I want to cover, and then we will be done for the day, so Andrew can stop filming. We had the significance of the coral paperweight. This is an item that Winston bought in Charrington's antique shop. When the thought police come up, it is destroyed. It is shattered. Just like the conch shell in Lord of the Flies, if you've ever read Lord of the Flies. What does it mean for Winston when that conch shell shatters?
Hope is lost.
Hope is lost. Bingo. Inside that paperweight is a piece of pink coral representing nature, representing the past, representing beauty, representing individuality. All of that is gone when the big dark boots shatter that paperweight. He and Julia's existence done. In fact, you can even make the case that it's Winston who is inside the paperweight, not a piece of coral. He is entrapped in this glass enclosure that is the government. And when it's shattered, so is his life. As Connor said, so is all hope. And then, Connor, you find all hope at our very last item here, the Chestnut Tree Cafe. This is where the political dissidents and those that are beaten down by the government come to hang out. Because at the end of the book, when you just look into the eyes of bleakness and you just write 2 + 2 = 5, and I like Big Brother, or I love Big Brother, Big Brother won. They could have shot Winston early in the book, page 3, boom, done. We'd be reading a 3-page book. That'd be awesome. But that makes him a martyr. A lot more powerful if you can physically, emotionally, and spiritually crush somebody's spirit. Thank you for watching.